Welcome to sunny Florida, where everybody I've told, send pictures to says, "Oh, yeah, fine, be that way." So anyway, used to be, I guess now I'm happy for people when they're on vacation, but you don't have to. Yeah.
When you send a postcard, like you can't get mad at a postcard, but when you could see what you're seeing, people get mad.
Yeah. Well, then I hope I'm pissing off all of our watchers and viewers today. No, it's beautiful here. This is my annual trip to the in-laws' place for Thanksgiving week, and so I usually do. We do this. Well, we come down here twice. We come down here in the spring too. So this is the fall one, and it is really nice. So it's kind of nice after having spent the weekend standing in a cornfield, freezing my ass off in Lancaster during a soccer tournament. I completely. It was like 20 degrees, and it felt like 5 degrees. It really did. It felt good. It's been very warm in the Northeast, and I really haven't felt like winter yet until just recently. So and I hate coming to Florida when it's warm in the Northeast because then it feels pointless. But
it's warmed up. It's like 55, so
still nice today, right? Yeah, we're having still a crazy warm fall.
Yeah.
So but here we are, and we're going to get into a bunch of things today.
I do want to give a public service announcement because I like to help people.
Yes, I know you do, Russ.
So I was in Whole Foods the other day, and I survived. And
that's the first public service.
I was doing things up, and if people want to see a funny video, look up the Whole Foods parking lot on YouTube. There's some funny stuff about that. But at any rate, they had this calendula gel that they have testers all the time, and my hands were killing me, and my neck was killing me, and I was heading to the Flyers game. I had forgotten my Advil, right? So it's like, uh-oh. I had no ibuprofen with me, so I said, let me try this stuff. I put it on. It takes the pain away for the rest of the evening. So I just went out and bought some. So CVS has it on sale. You get a $5 coupon and $2 off at the register. I do it.
Wow, what's it called again?
Hands are not hurting anymore.
What's it called?
Calendula gel.
Calendula gel. There you go.
It's a homeopathic, and it works.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah, because I have neck pain. I get hand pain from when I'm scrubbing to clean for people that are coming over my house, and then also from typing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Wow, that's a very good thing. Yeah, I have horrible agonizing back pain, but I don't think it's going to help that too much. But it could. You never know. I guess
it helps inflammation. Like
okay, yeah, I should give that a shot.
It's known for like skin irritations and other stuff, but like that's not the way they were selling it at this one place, but another place markets it for something else. But it works. It doesn't matter. It takes away the inflammation temporarily.
Well, there you go. That's good. That's a very nice public announcement. So we lost Mike temporarily. We'll have him back shortly.
He may have gone out to go buy a tube.
Yes, he may have immediately decided to go. So you were at the game last night, Russ?
Yes.
Definitely get into that because I thought there was something I wanted to talk about with that. And then we want to get into the teams that are in the playoffs now that won't be in the playoffs at the end of the year and vice versa, because this is the dreaded American Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday, which is the time that we give thanks to our for all the Indians shared with us so voluntarily back those years ago.
Yeah.
And and thanks to all the things that we
basically, as Americans, we're thanking the NFL for putting 2 games on, or 3. Right. Now it's 3. Honestly, that's what we're thankful for, right? I mean, what's
right. Oh yeah, thankful of course for all of you guys watching us and giving us a job. And reading our stuff, that's for sure. But in America, the GMs in both Canada and the U.S. look upon this day with dread and horror as the day that at which if you're not in the playoffs, you are apparently screwed. So, although we have seen it break a lot over the last few years, it seems like teams are starting to make it that aren't going to make it. And it is very, very close. But even though it's close, even though teams are sometimes 2 or 3 points out. Quite often, this is proven to be the case that you can't make up those 2 or 3 points over the next 5 months or whatever it is you have. You have a lot of time, but it's just hard to make up points in the NHL. So,
sorry about that, guys. I was having some computer camera problems, but seem to be straightened up now.
You look good now.
Yep. Okay. Well,
there must be something wrong then, Russ.
Well, I mean, your picture is clear, Mike.
Yes, I look as good as Rex Ryan did throwing a hissy fit on the sidelines yesterday.
That was one of my personal favorite things to see. Like, let's think about this for a minute, Rex. Let's break the headset mid-game, and what if they don't have a backup headset? Like, he just doesn't think. He's all emotion. He's all emotion, and he never thinks.
That plus he looked like he was on a bender because at the beginning of the game he was all like scruffy beard and everything. And
no, he was just up 23 hours studying, trying to beat Tom Brady. And what we've all learned is most of the time you're not going to beat him.
Actually, the thing is, and they did a pretty good job against Brady defensively.
They did.
It was their defense. It was their offense that let them down as usual. They didn't throw to their two biggest weapons in terms of passing.
Yeah, Brady was 6 for 19 when hurried, which we all know is always a problem for Brady, but he still had a touchdown, and he had the big touchdown, I think, when he was hurried. So that was the thing that he overcame. But the other thing about that game is you got gypped out of an extra play because the NFL referees are at an all-time low. There are 3 guys watching Sammy Watkins. He lands. He flips himself out of bounds. There should still be 5 seconds on the clock, and they say game over because the clock still runs, and he wasn't touched. The refs looked at him. The players looked at him. No one touched him. He went out of bounds, and they called the game. And it's like, really?
If anybody thinks that the NHL referees are bad, just watch an NFL game.
Awful. They have to apologize every week.
It makes the NHL look like the best officiated sport in history.
It is so, and also the NHL is so highly gambled that there's such a high impact on all this stuff that people just spend, and you also have a week to talk about how pissed off you are between games. So it's
right.
The NHL has the advantage of you hate this game, but your team's playing in 2 nights, so it's okay. And you'll forget about that when the next puck drops again, no matter how bad it was, And then at the end of the season, you might complain about it again if it costs you the playoff spot or something like that. But
of all the sports, though, and I'm not being biased because I watch most sports. I don't watch much NBA anymore, so I'll exclude them. But of baseball, football, and the NHL, I think the NHL refs are number 1. I think baseball umpires are number 2, even though they're arrogant, and NFL refs would come in number 3 for me.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's start up. I agree with you on that one. Let's start up right into the show here. So,
okay.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, November 24th, 2015.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday around 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time or so in the afternoon. And today, coming to you live down here from sunny Longboat Key, Florida, the off-season home of players like Zdeno Chara and coaches like Scotty Bowman, who live nearby. And I've run into Scotty Bowman a couple times down here.
He's the nicest guy. He'll have a long conversation with you if you want.
Oh, yeah, no, he will. He has, and he's such a quality guy, and really
and a longer conversation if you don't want.
Yeah, Scotty Bowman is he's one of the best. I mean, he's just, when you talk to him, I mean, when you consider that the fact this guy is such a crazy legend, and he will he'll definitely talk to you, and he does.
I think he is the best in that regard, because I'm thinking if we want to talk to legendary coaches, if I walk up to Bill Belichick on the street, he's walking by. He's not talking to me.
Oh yeah, no way. No, Scotty, he'll do it. I've seen him in restaurants around here. I've seen him in different places. He'll just talk to you.
No, Belichick will attack you with his hoodie, Russ.
He would. I would probably say something bad though, so I might be guilty myself.
Well, Scotty is a very nice man. I've been in an elevator with him, but every time I see him, I just think of one thing: the only organization he had a part of in his entire career that he didn't get to a Stanley Cup final with was the Buffalo Sabres.
That's a tall tale.
Yeah, I know. So a couple things we're going to get into today, including my blog, which is I'm going to do a UFA to B most tradable players this week, and next to sort of get things ready for the trade deadline. Today I got into Andrew Ladd, so we'll talk about him later on. He's a really interesting character coming into the trade deadline this year. And also we're going to talk about the NHL teams and whether or not they're going to be able to make the playoffs coming up with American Thanksgiving. But first I wanted to talk to Russ because you were last night at the Rod Brind'Amour retirement game in Philadelphia. I was down here already. And although I watched it on TV on the Slingbox, and I have to say, Rod Brind'Amour, who I never remember as really being that well-spoken as a player, really has become well-spoken as a...
He could have been a stand-up comedian. We've seen...
Yeah.
The only ceremony I've missed of the Flyers in the last, I want to say, 10 years is probably the Brind'Amour one, because I was going to the World Series to see the Mets, right? And by far, Brind'Amour was the funniest and most entertaining of all of the players, by far.
Completely relaxed, like working a crowd of 17 or 20,000 people. I was still called 17 to working a crowd of 20,000 people. Completely relaxed, in stage, thanking all the right people. Some really awesome, heartwarming stuff about Ed Snider, which I think is so great at a time like this. It was just great to hear.
A quick Ed Snider story for people that didn't see it. Basically, there was a game towards the end of the season where the Flyers weren't going to make the playoffs, and Brind'Amour got kicked out of the game. He fought with the referee verbally.
I remember this game. It was actually against Ottawa. I do remember this game.
Okay. And the referee was like, well, listen, your team's not going to make it. You're not in the league long enough where, by the way, NFL refs just used that argument like 4 or 5 weeks ago on a player. You're not in the league long enough, so you don't deserve the call. Your team, you're going to be on the golf course quick. Don't worry about it. And so basically Brind'Amour goes to his locker, and he's thinking to himself, oh, no, Ed Snider just walked in. Please don't come up to me, because he's thinking he's going to get canned or he's going to get traded or whatever. And Snider, he looks up, and Snider's there, and Snider finds out the story. And in the old Spectrum, locker rooms were close, and basically the referee's room was close. The only thing that was standing in between them was a guard and this iron gate, which once in a while the iron gate would be closed, but very rare from what I remember. Apparently Snider tore over there to tear a new one into that referee, and that's pretty cool. And you could hear the yelling. Like Brind'Amour said, he could hear the yelling in the locker room, and that's cool.
And he ripped into the referee for not, which is what Brind'Amour said, not for saying and not for the bad call or whatever, not for the fact that he made a mistake and might have cost his team the playoffs or what have you, but for the fact that he talked down to a player.
Right.
And that's what he was mad about.
The lack of respect.
Yeah, and that is why Ed Snider is what he is. That's what he's about that. I mean, and Rod really got into some great stories. I mean, my best Ed Snider story I wanted to share real fast because I really liked this story. I don't think I've ever shared it. First year I was doing this, Ed was reading my stuff and liking it a lot, and I got an email from his secretary who said, Ed wants to meet with you. I'm like, oh man, okay. I thought I was in trouble, but I went in there. He's like, no, you're the future of this whole internet thing and podcast thing. So it's like I want to invite you and your wife to come and watch a game with me. Like, great. So I was in the press box that season, my first season in the press box there in Philly. So one game I said, okay, I'm gonna come with my wife. So we went. We had dinner with him at the there's a whole dinner thing they do that he does for him and his guests before the game.
Okay.
I was sat in the box with him, and it was really interesting. I sat right one row above him, and at this time, I forget who the Flyers goalie was. It might have been like Mitamaki or something like that. And so when you go into Ed's box in the at that time Wells Fargo Center or whatever it is now, the building that's been changed many times. It's probably never going to change from Wells Fargo because that's
FU Center. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
FU Center was the best one.
Yeah. So I go in there, and Ed Snider would have he had his seat right on the rail there. So first, there's the first row in that level, and then a big thing of popcorn there, and a red phone that literally looked like the Gotham City bat phone. Yeah. All right. And he's watching the game, and I was told, this phone is a direct line to Paul Holmgren. At any point. So at any point in the game, Ed Snider can pick up that phone. It rings in Homer's box. So Ed's like, so a goal goes in early on in the game. Ed grabs the phone. What's wrong with our goalies? Why aren't we doing this? We need better goalies. This is terrible. Puts the phone down.
That's at least more civilized than the old Canadiens owner who used to sit right behind Patrick Roy, and if he let up a goal, would say something to him.
Yeah, it gave me a lot of respect, like a lot of admiration for what Paul Holmgren had to go through on a nightly basis.
Holmgren's a tough guy, though. Like Holmgren, if you meet him, it's funny. He's like a gentle giant when you meet him, but if you knew him as a player, you saw him knock the snot out of people. Yeah. And he's just an intimidating guy to look at when he talks because he gets very intense.
Yeah.
He's got a high threshold. He could take it.
Oh, no, he can definitely take it. Homer's a one of the more interesting personalities I've ever been around because he's very dark, quiet, but at the same time, like when he thinks something's funny, we'll just break into this crazy laughter that's really great.
Yeah. Well, here's a good example of Holmgren, just so people know the mindset. When the Flyers used to have the big M&M candy bar, I remember taking a small cup, those small cups of M&Ms, and Homer goes over and he gets a coffee cup and he's filling it with M&Ms, and he looks at me and he goes, why go small?
Why go small?
You gotta go big.
I love it.
You know what? I get that.
That is Paul to a degree. To a degree. I was, oh man. So yeah. So then after the game with Ed, I watched the whole game, and like several times he had the popcorn. If it ever got below a third, there was somebody there assigned to actually replace it. So they would replace it completely. I'm watching this. He'd be replacing the popcorn. And he'd be doing what every fan wants to do, which is like complain to the team directly, which he can do because he's the owner. Which is, why is our power play passing the puck? When are they going to learn to shoot the puck? The fans all know what to do. I remember him saying that. The fans are all yelling. They know to shoot. Why aren't we shooting? He hang his phone up. I was just sitting right behind him, and then he would be like, see, he would look back to me, see, that's how it's done. Just like that. He would look behind me. I'm like, okay. And it was great because you just realize the passion. I mean, that's what Ed Snider's all about. And that's why the fans. I'm still going to be. I don't think there will ever be an owner that I'm more fond of than Ed Snider. So then after the game, we go down, and I'm in the press at this point. Remember, so I am used to what we do when we go down to the locker room. You wait for the room to be opened up. Well, I'm walking behind Ed Snider and his wife, and his wife grabs my wife, and they go off to someplace. I have no idea where. Like they just go. He's like, "You come with me." And we're walking into the locker room. So I'm walking into the locker room like with Ed. Which
right.
As a reporter, I'm saying, red lights are going up. I shouldn't be doing this. This is wrong. I can't be doing. The players are going to be like, oh, why are you here with our owner? What's going on?
That's funny.
I had to explain that a couple times over to a lot of the players as to why the heck I was there. But he just said, I followed him, and he literally went down the line. All the guys are still there in their stalls, taking off their stuff. He's tapping them all on their legs, saying, good job, guys, good job, good job. Tough game because they lost, I think, in overtime.
Yeah.
And, so, anyway.
If you have that look, they always say if you have that look, you can get away with a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so last night, the locker room guys were like, wait a minute, you gotta wait because the players are coming off the ice now because they had the fathers there, right? And so it took a few minutes, and Ron Francis came down there in like a rush, right? They didn't even stop Ron Francis. He through the line like he was getting around a defense, and I was like, but he just. And then I was like, all right, it's Ron Francis.
None of those guys know who Ron Francis is. Likely they might, but they're probably not. But you're right. No, if you look like, believe me, when you're with Ed, you're literally, you're with royalty running through that building. Right. And you can do whatever. I would like to have.
Had that look, and they probably didn't know who he was, and he got through, and we all waited.
I remember joking with Ed. I'm like, I feel like we could go up to the place and say, I want 15 hot dogs right now, and they would be like, here,
Yeah.
So, yeah. But Rod Brind'Amour last night was great. I mean, here's a guy who really had two very distinctively different careers, in my opinion. Like, the time he was with Philadelphia feels totally different than the time after he left Philadelphia.
Yeah, I can see that.
There was a lot more time.
And it seemed like he felt that way, too.
Yeah, but he was more. I mean, he was more of a scorer in Philadelphia. I mean, he was a two-way guy, but he was more of a scorer. And when he went
he was a scorer. And
when he went to Carolina, he was more of a role player and a checking guy.
What happened with Brind'Amour scoring? Somebody asked me about that last week. I was talking to somebody. Why did Brind'Amour stop scoring? And my theory was Brind'Amour he was such a workout buff. First of all, as he got bigger, he got less flexible. He got really
I remember there was an injury. I think
he had back problems.
Yeah, he had back problems. He became a workout. I mean, he's still in incredible shape and could probably play right now. He's a workout.
Oh yeah.
Workoutaholic and known historically as probably the most workoutaholic of any flyer that I've ever most players I've covered.
And I don't know if one rubbed off on the other, but at the time that he was in Carolina, I believe that crossed with when Gary Roberts was in Carolina. And Gary Roberts, when he had that neck injury in Calgary, he worked out and became a fiend in terms of working out for like a year and a half to get back in the NHL, and maybe that had something to do with him becoming such a guy intent on, and that extended his career because
the biggest change that you could see was basically because like Bobby Clark traded him and basically told the media, hey, he'll never be like a Selke candidate, don't worry about it. And then a couple years later, he wins the Selke.
He actually addresses this last night, Russ, which is awesome. He's sitting there and he's thanking everybody in the Flyers organization. He gets to Bobby Clark, and he's like, and Bobby Clark wasn't part of why I came here. Russ Farwell drafted me before that.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, it's probably every reason why I left here. He traded me, right? Maybe I shouldn't be thanking him after all. And then he moved on. It was hilarious.
It was hilarious.
It was really classy, and it just showed. I mean, and it kind of harkened back to a. They kept shooting to the camera. You wouldn't have seen this because you were there, but the camera kept going to the Flyers bench. You would see Giroux and other players around. and I wanted them so badly to listen to what Brind'Amour was saying. Like I really, because these things happen all the time. These ceremonies, and players sometimes they tune it in, they tune it out. But there was something last night that was like, okay, as a Flyers fan, this is what it is to be a Flyer, and this is what's missing from this team sometimes.
Right.
Of what that means, and every team has that. Every team has a player that kind of represents it, and then Brind'Amour's a player that represents it. So they would at one point they flashed to the bench. And I know people watching probably saw this too. And these guys were all like looking at Giroux in a really funny way, and he was kind of laughing. And I don't know whether it connected to what Brind'Amour was saying. Brind'Amour was saying, this is a team that you always want to play for, and you never want to take a moment to ever give up for. And it was
even Hurricanes fans were happy to see this ceremony because they love Brind'Amour. I covered that cup. I was literally right in front of Brind'Amour's locker for like 20 minutes after he won the cup because he just talked forever and was so appreciative of it.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a great moment.
No, he very much was. I mean, it was a really, really good moment. So I was happy the Flyers have done a lot of these things. I like the Hall of Fame nights better than just the honoring nights.
Yes.
I mean, there's something between a lot of times people complain about the longer ceremonies, but the Flyers were doing some of these honoring nights or these quick, very, very short ceremonies. That I think they can do it a little bit better than they're doing it, but that's an opinion. Moving on, let's get into Andrew Ladd for a second because here's a guy who is very valuable. He's a UFA coming up. He's increased. Am I sounding okay? Because it is really windy here.
No, you sound fine.
All right. He's a UFA to be. He's the captain of the Winnipeg Jets. He's very much one of the few carryovers from. I think he played for the Thrashers, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
So he and Bufflin are sort of the Thrashers that are left over.
I think Wheeler was too, but I'm not.
Yeah, played for them briefly, right? Yeah. So, So this is, and Ladd, of course, got his most notoriety by being a part of the Blackhawks when he wins the Stanley Cup with them.
And Carolina.
And Carolina, right? And I forgot. Yeah, actually, probably more notoriety with Carolina because he was such a big part of that team that won the Cup, and then he was a part of the Blackhawks team. But I don't think of him as one of the big parts of that team.
No, he was a pretty big part, actually.
Okay, yeah. So maybe I'm just losing my mind. But
he was really young with the Canes. I mean, he played, but he was young. With the Blackhawks, he was more of a third line guy, but he scored some key goals.
Yeah, he's won 2 Stanley Cups, right? And and has definitely. And now the Jets are at that point. We've had Peter Tessier on here a couple times, and he's talked about this big decision that they're trying to make about. Even though they've had some success, even though they made the playoffs, they've got such a good young group coming up, and they're so solid that there's a little bit of almost a wanting to rebuild for a little bit longer than they need to, because they could become a mediocre team and just be, on the bubble of making the playoffs and even making the playoffs but not going any further, or they could really rebuild just a little bit further to say, okay, making the playoffs is not good enough for us. And that's where the Jets seem to be because the Jets are actually moving in that direction. That puts Bufflin and maybe to a larger extent even Ladd perhaps on the outside looking in, because the contract Ladd's looking for, the numbers. I mean, Mike, we were saying the other day. I think their contract.
Yeah, he's looking for Kessler numbers, which he's looking for a little less than $7 million a year. And I mean, right now Winnipeg can go one of two directions, like you said. I mean, they can re-sign these guys, but then they become a cap team, or they trade Bufflin and Ladd and restock the shelves. Not restock in the sense of getting prospects, because I think they want to make hockey trades. I think they want to get assets who are in the NHL right now. And if you look at it, Pavlik just got hurt. They called up Connor Hellebuyck. He may be the goalie of the future there. I think they now have an opportunity because Pavlik is going to be out until January to find out whether Hellebuyck is the guy that they want to go with. And if they slip a little bit and they slip out of the playoff race, then I think they become major sellers at the deadline, because it doesn't sound like Bufflin wants to stay there. And if Ladd is asking for close to $7 million, I like him as a player. He's just not worth that.
Yeah, and they're not going to be a cap team because their arena is not big enough. They have a limitation as to what they could spend. Even though they sell out, that's all they can do. They can only sell out to their max.
Well,
and so they're not going to go over that. Cheverdayoff is not going to be a top of the cap guy.
I mean, they're owned by a really wealthy. So that's what I wonder sometimes. Like you have to think about that. Like, are they? I mean, I've heard the same thing, that they're not a cap team, but
Right.
we haven't seen yet really them be tested to be a cap team. I don't think whether they would or not, how far they would go. How far they would go.
To what Russ was saying, they do, or what you were saying, like, they have a billionaire owner. I mean, not just single billionaire, multi-billionaire.
The richest guy in Canada owns them.
Yeah, and I don't think now they would be operating at a loss financially if they were a cap team, because they are limited because of the size of the MTS Center, and they're not getting as much television revenue as some bigger markets would be. But I think he can afford it. And if that's the question, then if the intent of that team is to contend within the next 2 to 3 years, then signing Byfuglien and Ladd would be imperative. But the problem is they also have Scheifele as an RFA. They also have Trouba as an RFA, and they have to lock up those guys. And if you're locking them up for 6 or 7 years, being young players under the age of 24, they're going to want 7-8 year deals. And if you pay them, then you can't pay them and pay Byfuglien and Ladd. So, I mean, Cheveldayoff has a really tough choice.
He does. And, I mean, from all indications, I think if I was to put, a percentage on it, I would put Byfuglien at still like maybe 40% returning to Winnipeg. Even though it sounds like, there are, I think it comes down to term with Byfuglien. There's he wants longer, Jets wants shorter.
Right.
There might be a arrangement to make, and Byfuglien is in many ways the harder player to replace, even though Ladd is such a good player. What Byfuglien brings is very unique to the NHL. So, but with Ladd, I think I'd put it more like around 20%. I think about maybe 20% that Ladd returns to Winnipeg, and that number could go down drastically soon too. So it's just because it really feels like Ladd is playing for another team at this point. Like there's going to be some point at which he's going to be on another team. So.
Right.
Excuse me. I mean, and I've heard players. There's players that are interested in him. There's teams that are interested in him, and teams are already scouting him.
Sure.
I've heard Buffalo mentioned. I've heard Nashville mentioned. And I said I've even heard Philly mentioned. There were some rumors flying around that Philly was looking at some sort of big multiplayer deal that would have Ladd and Byfuglien both ending up in Philadelphia, which is a really strange move. But at the same time, there's been a lot of strange rumors. Boston doing the same sort of thing.
I mean, Nashville makes a lot of sense because, they may be that one impact forward away from, I mean, I personally think it would be a center that they would need to go out and get, like an Eric Staal, who I think is going to probably be traded before the deadline. But if they can't get Eric Staal, if they're not willing to pay the price for Eric Staal, then maybe they could get Ladd for a reasonable price from Winnipeg.
You have to wonder what Chevy's going to do as far as making the playoffs this year. How important it is to Winnipeg, because that's the big question, right?
I've spoken to him about it. It's important, but it's not break the bank, get off course for the future important.
Okay, yeah. So that does lean towards we can get good return for Ladd to help somebody win in the playoffs. They're going to do that. I mean, better than picking up some draft pick for his rights at the draft or whatever.
But they're not going to They're not going to cash in. They're not.
Right. So I mean, he's going to be one that we're going to be following closely. And like I said, Nashville is a definite possibility. I've heard New Jersey mentioned, which is interesting because the Devils are in a spot, where they are right now in the playoffs. And this is really, they're absolutely one of the surprise teams in the NHL this year. I know you talked a little bit about surprise teams yesterday. They have to be one of them. I mean, this team has no offense or no conceivable offense.
Camilleri is playing very well for them. He's scoring a lot.
Yeah.
They're getting good performances out of Henrique and Zajac, who are guys that we said that they had to get offensive performances out of to have a chance to make the playoffs. I mean, we all thought that they were going to be one of those bottom 4 teams, and right now they're not. But the thing with New Jersey that makes them a potential buyer at the deadline is they got cap room. They got lots of cap room.
They have all kinds of cap room, and yeah, you're right. I mean, that's why they're going to be. I mean, if they're in the playoff hunt, and with Corey Schneider's a good enough goalie, he can cause. This is not going to be the first time the Devils have screwed up other teams in the playoffs. I mean, this is a team that could really bother. They have a history. This is their history, and it's funny. The more things change, the more they stay the same with the Devils.
I don't know if Ladd puts them over the top. I think Eric Staal would do better than Ladd for them.
And
well, for sure.
And Russ, don't you think that? I mean, I think New Jersey needs to bolster up front, but if they were going to make a playoff run with the defense that they have, I know they have a lot of young defensemen, but don't you think that they would probably need a defenseman who could play 20, 25 minutes? I mean, I think
they definitely are. They're in need of defense. I mean, they did a good job of coming back last night, but they were a hot mess for 3 periods. I mean, they finally got it together in the 4th period, and I think the Flyers took their foot off the gas. It's always that combination. Were you talking about the Devils?
Devils.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Carolina needing.
No. I was talking about
back in return from the Devils. That's what I thought. I think that's what they would be looking for. And Staal to me seemed frustrated last night after the game, and I heard him about a week ago. I told you on Sportsnet on the show at noon, saying that he has no deadline set, but it could happen before the actual trade deadline. I don't think they're signing him, and I do think they're trading him. And I don't think he even wants to be there anymore. I'm not saying he's not trying, but I'm saying I think he's finally had it with his team not winning.
Well, let me talk about Staal. He's going to write about him tomorrow, but I'll give you a little hint. I actually have heard another scenario with Eric Staal brought to my attention by 2 scouts, 1 NHL person, 1 ex-teammate of his. There was this really interesting theory. They all say, well, no one's talking about the 3rd theory, which is that Staal goes somewhere after the trade deadline and comes back and signs in Carolina.
Could happen.
Yeah.
Which is, it goes even sooner this year because Carolina can give him up sooner, like you're saying, get more for him by giving him up sooner. Someone can pick him up for the rest of the year, and then he might still want to come back there. And yeah, things are down right now, and it's definitely a frustrating time for the Hurricanes. But at the end of the day, there's still such a big tie. His brother's there. There's so much there.
Right.
And he actually, has said he's told some people he would take a discount to play in Carolina. So I think that it's going to be an interesting. I think that scenario with Staal is similar to like Antoine Vermette from last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Which kind of everybody knew Antoine Vermette was going to go. Matt Molson, same kind of thing before that. We knew Matt Molson was going to come back to Buffalo. Right. There's certain things that are just that's not uncommon right now. And with all that Staal cares about, and he's not just the captain. He's the founding father of this team. He is. With all he cares about this team, he looks at other teams and says, you know what? Why don't I go play someplace else this year? I'll have fun. I'll go play for the playoffs, and I'll bring some good players in so that when I come back and sign, we're a better team.
It's franchise building. I mean, basically, what he's doing is helping himself. If the plan is for him to come back, and I mean, I think everybody realizes Eric Staal is not an $8.25 million player anymore. He's done with that. He's still
from what I've heard, his kids are very, very much wanting to stay there. His family very much loves it there. It's the kind of situation where you can see, but he does care a lot about the Hurricanes, and I think it's a team that's always it's where he's always going to be associated with. He won a Stanley Cup there. So
what I'm saying,
about the elephant in the room? What if the Hurricanes move?
Yeah, if they move, that's really interesting. I don't think that's happening, but
what I'm saying, Ek, is I think it's easier for Eric Staal to accept a trade someplace and come back to Carolina at a lower cap figure than to be extended for a lower cap figure.
Yes, I totally agree, and I think because there is for all that he is, for all that you do here for all his family, and he's a father. He's also realizing how many more shots am I going to have to go try to win a Stanley Cup. If I go to Pittsburgh or someplace fun like that, I could seriously have a good cup run, and that believe me, every player, as much as they love their family and all that, they realize there's only so many years left of their career that they're going to get a chance to do this.
And there are three. Because I've looked at the possibilities. There are 3 teams that make the most sense for Eric Staal. One I mentioned before was Nashville. Another one is Montreal because they really don't have a big presence up the middle, and they have the ability, the cap room to be. I think they would have the cap room to take them. This one would be a little more difficult, but we've talked about this before, Russ. He could win a Stanley Cup with his other brother with the Rangers.
Right, and that is a possibility, but things have to happen. You'd have to lose Boyle somehow, and you'd have to lose even more salary than that because I don't think France – now, the good thing is at the deadline, it's only 25% of that salary, but still they're really tight to the cap. They would have to make some adjustments. Some salary would have to go back the other way. I don't know. It's a tough one. It could happen.
Or
Me, I
Carolina.
talked about New York with a person, and they said how New York happens is New York happens the way Chicago happened with Versteeg last year. If one of the big ticket numbers goes down in New York for an extended period of time here on long-term injury reserve and opens up enough money to get them in that last quarter of the season, then Staal comes in, and then that player returns to the playoffs. That's the way Eric Staal happens in New York. But you need an injury to happen. As crazy as it sounds.
Or you have Peter Carmanos retain 50% of the salary to get assets back from the Rangers.
Which probably is not a problem. I mean, I bet you 50% of his salary will be retained to certain teams because this is the game. Because this is the game plan. If you retain 50% of their salary, if this is the game plan of Staal coming back, they want to get the most back for him. Staal's going to be like, keep 50% of my salary so you can get more back for me so that I come back to a better team.
Mm-hmm.
That helps, So let's get into so now I have nothing to write about nor talk about tomorrow, but let's continue on.
We'll think of something.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm on vacation, so I've been writing this ahead of time, trying to get myself together. All right, here we go. All right, let's talk about the standings. So let's talk about the teams that are in the playoffs now. We get to American Thanksgiving, and who's not going to be there. I mean, of course, we still aren't there yet, so we have some of these teams they're so close, some of these teams could still sneak in by Thursday.
Right.
But assuming that we only have tonight and tomorrow night of hockey left to play, here's where we are. Montreal, we all kind of have to say, is in the playoffs at this point.
Yep.
I mean, it's crazy to say, but when you've only lost 4 games at American Thanksgiving, you're in the playoffs. There's just no doubt about that. After them, and the Rangers, I think, are in the same boat. I mean, they've only lost 3 games. I mean, so these are 2 teams that are kind of running away with it. And one of the stories I've been working on too is the fact that, and I wrote this story last year, and I wrote this story the year before that, is the fact that we have seen since what we call NHL 2, which is like the season-ending the season loss lockout. Since then, NHL 2, the new NHL, whatever you're going to call it, we've seen this trend growing. That there are every year a few teams that get further out early and a few teams that fall further back early than ever before. At American Thanksgiving, the difference from the top to the bottom has grown every year. It's kind of a crazy thing. So, like right now, we have 34 and 16 is the lowest point total? 15.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, right now, I mean, looking at it at the quarter poll, the only 3 teams I think could say I think are locks in the East are Montreal, the Rangers, and Washington at 29 points. And Washington's 14-5-1. From that point on, I mean, Columbus is not out of it. They're only 8 points. They're only 7 points out of a wild card and 8 points out of third place in their division. And they've played a lot better with Tortorella at the helm than they did after the 0-9 start. So I mean, I think anybody is in it right now.
Even the Leafs in 21st place.
No, the Leafs.
That's right. Even the Leafs.
You're wrong.
All right. So right now the team.
Florida.
But by the way, Russ, James Reimer was injured in practice this morning.
Let's not go down this rat hole, okay? Because we could easily go down that rat hole.
We're not.
We're talking about the NHL right now. So we're gonna cover the Leaf rat hole with some Leafs today. Call that a day. All right. So. The teams that are in the playoffs in the East right now: Montreal, Ottawa, Detroit, the Rangers, Washington, Pittsburgh, Boston, and New Jersey. Okay, so those are the teams that are right now in the playoffs as of now. Now, of course, the Islanders are tied, but they played 1 less game than New Jersey. So, of those 8 teams, tell me, Russ, which of those 8 teams that I mentioned, Montreal, Ottawa, Detroit, Rangers, Washington, Pittsburgh, Boston, New Jersey, which of those 8 teams are not going to make the playoffs?
The Bruins and the Senators.
The Bruins and the Sens. Wow. Ottawa only has 5 losses.
Doesn't matter.
All right, doesn't matter. Why?
Because I don't think they have the horses to get them through even to the trade deadline where they might be able to do something. They're going to have trouble making trades. Their defense is still thin. Mm-hmm. Don't think they're going to have the same magic out of Andrew Hammond this year. He's good, don't get me wrong, but he's just not going to go on that kind of run.
And he's injured now.
He's injured now, and Anderson's back in. Just that whole unrest in goal, it's not going to work for them.
New Jersey's going to make the playoffs.
They might. Corey Schneider's one of the 10 best goalies, maybe 5 best goalies in the league.
You got to put it on the line. So you're saying
listen, Hines hasn't played a good system. They're getting more goals than we thought. Camilleri seems to be like the old Camilleri. If they make a move at the deadline and it can pick up another scorer, they probably will make it.
See, that's what I'm looking at right now, and I'll do it this way because I'm looking at the teams as they're currently constructed. I can't assume which of these teams are going to make deals or assume injuries.
Well, you have to assume that right now because we're asking you to predict which teams are going to make the playoffs over the course of the whole season.
Okay,
So
well, first of all, of the teams that are out on the outside looking in right now, Tampa Bay is making the playoffs. I know they've had a Stanley Cup hangover, but I am fairly confident that team will get into the top 3 in the Atlantic Division. If they're one of the top 3, I think honestly, I think the Detroit Red Wings might drop out. I mean, even though Dylan Larkin is playing well, even though they played most of the season without Datsyuk, they're just not. This is not the Detroit Red Wings of the last few years. There seems to be something missing after all those years of Mike Babcock. I don't know if we don't know what Jeff Blashill is as a coach, but there doesn't seem to be as much motivation and as much structure as there was with Babcock there. So I think Detroit could fall out. Ottawa's a borderline. Pittsburgh's the big question mark too in the Metro. I mean. They're just, there's something is not right with Sidney Crosby. He has had he just does not look like the same player, and their defense is shorthanded with Ole Mata.
yeah, I mean let's talk about Boston for a second. I mean, in the whole scheme of things, the Bruins, who everybody, I think, if you didn't know the standings and you were just an NHL person and you didn't look on here. And you're just like, oh, I watched the hockey and stuff like that, and I know that. I bet you, if you went up to a random person on the street who didn't ever look at the standings, and you asked them, are the Bruins in the playoffs right now? They would say they weren't. That they would think, oh, no, the Bruins are struggling, right? They're a tough team. They're playing, and I think that would be the normal feeling for that until you actually look at it and you realize that they're in the playoffs.
But they're flying every game, Like these games are, for what I'm noticing, 5-4, 4-3. Like they're getting by.
Oh yeah, but they're 7-2 away from Boston, and that's the crazy thing about the Bruins. They at home are way worse than that. I think they're 4-6-1, so they're under 500 by 2 games at home, 5 games over 500 away from Boston. Well, that makes zero sense in terms of the Bruins.
I saw the Bruins twice in the last couple days, and when they played back-to-back against the Leafs. Tuukka Rask is not the Tuukka Rask of old. At least he's not playing that way. He did play pretty well in the 2 games against Toronto. Their offense is completely centered on Brad Marchand and Patrice Bergeron. They're getting some decent performances out of Bolesky, out of Jimmy Hayes. Krejci is having a decent year.
Oh, Krejci's having a great year. Let's give Krejci
having a great year.
Okay. I mean, I'm just going through. But the one thing is, they did get Seidenberg back.
Yeah.
He seems to be playing pretty well, and where they're going to be hurt, I think, is the depth of that organization that was there in the last few years is not there anymore. There's no more Johnny Boychuk. McQuaid is not a very good defenseman.
Chris Kelly's out. Who's going to get hurt next? Is it going to be Seidenberg? Is it going to be Bergeron? You're just waiting.
Yeah, they're going to be one of these teams that maybe Don Sweeney at the deadline, if they're within shouting distance of the playoffs. People upstairs will say we got to go for it because that's the Boston Bruin thing is to go for the playoffs. If they were smart, they would rebuild. But again, I don't think that word is in their vocabulary.
All right, so let me go through it like this, guys. I'm going to go through the teams that aren't in the playoffs for the Eastern Conference, and you're each going to just give me a percentage that you think of them making the playoffs. So I'm going to go. So I'm going to go through the teams, keeping the teams out. Actually, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to say Montreal.
That's good. Do that. That's good.
Yeah, Montreal and the Rangers and the Capitals are in the playoffs. Okay, I think those are the 3 teams that I feel like in the East, and they are. They're by far the 3 best teams in the East. It's not even close.
Agreed.
And they're by far the only teams with their plus 18 goal differential or above, and everyone else is around 0. So that also tells you a lot.
Agreed.
Ottawa's 3-3. They in the shootout. Ottawa's gone to 6 shootouts. So is Toronto. It's pretty crazy in this day and age because some teams haven't gone to any. Most teams have gone to 1. These 2 teams have gone to 6. Must be something in the water in Ontario. All right, so let's see. Let's start with Detroit. Chances, Mike. We'll go Mike, then Russ.
40%.
60. 60.
I'm going 65%. The Senators.
50%.
40.
55. I'm putting them in. The Penguins.
50%.
58.
For Chris Letang.
All right. For the showcase showdown, I'm going 59. I'm going up. Hi, on you, Russ. Here we go.
Ding, 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 ding.
The Boston Bruins.
35%.
18.
20. Yep, right there. The Devils.
30%.
63.
63. 52.9. No, I'm going to say 48.6. They're not making the playoffs, but barely. The Islanders.
75%.
I'll go 65.
All right. Yeah, I got 75 too. That sounds about right. But I'll go 76 just to be difficult. 76.
Mm-hmm.
The Florida Panthers.
40%.
I'm going to go 49.
You think they're right on the edge, huh? I'm saying 32. I'm sticking with my original preseason prediction that this would be a year the Florida Panthers wouldn't be able to deal with the fact that they're supposed to be good. Tampa.
100%.
85.
75. I think there's a chance that Tampa doesn't make it. I really do. I think that there is something inherently wrong with Tampa, and it's not just a hangover. There's something else wrong with them.
I think there's a better chance of snow in Florida, but you never know.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, I'm giving this podcast from the closest NHL team to me is Tampa, so I could get killed by the local manatees. But I think that I do indeed believe that. Okay, so the Philadelphia Flyers.
They're going to evict you from Longboat Key.
Flyers, go.
Flyers, Mike.
15%.
8%.
10%, yeah. Yeah. The Toronto Maple Leafs, Mike.
0%.
25.
What'd you say?
25.
25. 35.
Oh, jeez.
Buffalo Sabres.
10%.
30.
5%. There's no question. Carolina Hurricanes.
0.
0.
1. The Columbus Blue Jackets.
I'll be optimistic. 25%.
20.
I'm
20%.
very optimistic. It's an 80% chance they don't make the playoffs. Like,
I know.
I mean,
That's optimistic.
yeah, starting out 0-9, I mean, you'd be insane if you picked anything over 50%. I mean, they have to make up that ground.
I'm going 52%. I think Columbus is going to make it.
Speaking of insane,
I think Columbus is the other team I'm putting in. I had to put one more team in. I'm putting Columbus in. Columbus is going to make it. They are absolutely going to squeak in. They are only, like you said, 7 points out. And
the
they
definition of insanity right there.
They only have to cross 8 or 9 teams to get in, so they're going to be fine. Let's go to the Western Conference. Okay, so in this conference, really, we've got teams that are in it, which, to me is Dallas. I mean, that's the only team really that is definitely in it.
Yep.
I mean, the Blues are getting there. The Blues are close to getting to the point where they could say that they're in it. But because they're not definitely there right now. The teams that are in this are Dallas, St. Louis, Minnesota, L.A., San Jose, and Vancouver. Nashville and Chicago are the wild card teams. By the way, I would like to throw this out there that one of my crazy predictions was that the Blackhawks would be out of the playoffs come the American Thanksgiving. We have a shot still at this. I need a big game from the Winnipeg Jets tonight, but it could happen.
It's like a telethon now.
That's a crazy prediction that if I get it right, that deserves some credit. Come on.
All right.
Thank
I
you,
said they would be in it every year, but I said at American Thanksgiving they would not be in the playoffs.
If it happens.
They're 2 points away from not being in the playoffs. All right, so those are the 8 teams. Right now, standing on the outside looking in, Winnipeg, Arizona, Anaheim, Colorado, Calgary, and Edmonton. So
I think right now the only 2 you could say definitively are in the playoffs would be the 2 atop of the Central, Dallas and St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean to me that's. I'm going to go one further, and I'm going to say L.A. and San Jose are definitely in the playoffs. How about that?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm saying that is because I don't think in that division anybody else can make it.
I see. I think Anaheim is coming back.
But I don't think.
Anaheim is only 4 points behind Vancouver.
I know, and that makes all the logical sense in the world. But I will sit there and say that I think Anaheim's getting back in the playoffs too. But I think that I do not think I think Vancouver could fall into a wild card, but no further. And I think that I think that no other team. There's no other team in this. It's a 4-team race. So I think San Jose and LA are the two best teams in this division by far. So therefore, I really do think that the other teams have a shot.
So you have no faith in Calgary coming back, or in
none whatsoever. No. Calgary is something's inherently wrong with Calgary. They're in the same spot Florida was. Florida is. I mean, Florida doesn't have this. It's not. But if Calgary and Florida were flip-flopped, into other conferences, they'd be like the same team to me. They're both really hard-working teams that are young and they have huge potential, but people expect too much of them too quickly. Mm-hmm. So, and just because they made the playoffs, there's an unrealistic expectation going along with that, which is really not good for young players. So to me, both those teams are facing the same demonic hockey gods curses that are going on. Edmonton, I really thought was going to have a shot at this. And I'm going to stick out on the limb and say that is the one team that I sneak in the wild card.
The thing is, and Russ, you can back me up on this if you feel. The thought that Cam Talbot was going to come in there and be the savior goaltender was about as sharp as thinking Ben Scrivens was going to be the savior goaltender. It's not the goaltending. It's
that's the point. Right? Was anybody going to come in there and be the savior goaltender?
No, but because the team can't play defense, they still do not understand. They don't have the horses on the blue line.
They're getting there.
Well, I know they're getting there, but
I guess their record. I don't know if they're 500 since they've lost Connor McDavid, Russ. Like our bet was. I don't think they are.
Yeah.
But the horses are not. The horses were not.
You're conceding. Oh, he's conceding. Are you conceding
anything until Connor McDavid returns?
Jesus.
Okay.
But for now, I'm saying I thought they would because I thought, and Draisaitl's done a good job. But
he has. He's done a great job.
Right, but they're still playing Andrew Ference on their blue line.
Right.
Well, that's true.
That's their problem. I think that Darnell Nurse and to a lesser extent Clefbaum are going to be pretty decent defensemen. They'll be building blocks on the blue line. But when you're playing Andrew Ference, when you're playing Justin Schultz, who can't play defense, you're in trouble.
Justin Schultz, I'm the biggest Justin Schultz distractor in the world. He is playing better this year.
Well,
if he can play a little bit of defense, he's okay. Like he has plenty of upside offensive potential. I mean, I'm asking Justin Schultz to be half as good as Michael Del Zotto on defense. If he can do that,
he's not though. I mean, he got overrated before he came out of college. Right. He just never was that guy.
Why, then why is it, Russ? I mean, think about this. Why don't we ever see players just be converted into wingers? like Justin Schultz, could he not play wing? I mean, is it impossible?
He could, but Edmonton, because they are so bad on defense, they figure it's an easier transition to get him to play some defense than get him to be effective at the wing.
Right.
I know. I'm just always surprised that we don't see players at the NHL level.
I agree.
And there is a value out there right now for puck rushing defenseman, which he can do. He's just got to be a little less of a liability in his own end, and that's what that's what's in front of Peter Chiarelli.
But whether or not he's bringing the puck with him or not is another question altogether.
Well, thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Many times that he's still rushing while the puck's going the other direction. So, yeah.
I mean, Clefbaum looks great compared to any other defenseman on that team. I'm not sure that's.
He looks phenomenal, and there's a lot of talk that Hamonic could end up here. That could change things around a little bit.
Sure.
So let's do the percentages.
Let's do the percentages. Let's go.
Get out of here. All right. So Dallas, we all agree is in, right? We're going to say Dallas.
They're in.
Yep.
St. Louis.
100%. They just got Paul Stastny back last night. They beat Buffalo. They've weathered all the injuries that they've had. I think they're a guaranteed playoff team.
92%.
Yeah, I'm going to say 90%. Yeah, but I agree that I think they're in it too. Minnesota.
85%. Dubnyk has not played as well as I thought, at least as they thought he was going to. With that division being so tight, you could see them fall out.
60.
60. I'm going 70. I think they're in. LA.
95%. I think with that division the way it is, quick and what they have on that team will be able to carry them to a playoff.
88.
98. I'm agreeing. I think that Quick has been one of the stories of the year that people have really ignored.
When Lucic is now starting to get it together now that his family problems are behind him too.
Yeah. I have something I want to talk to you about off the air about that later. San Jose.
75%. I'm still not convinced about Martin Jones. I know they used Player of the Week, one of the Players of the Week this week, and he started off the season well, but when he didn't play well, they went into a death spiral for about 3 weeks. So it all rides on him, and I'm still not convinced he's a number one goaltender.
I'll say 55. He's starting to win me over. I like him. I like his demeanor. But then when I was watching specifically what Marlowe's been doing lately, he's just sort of mixed in there. Like Marlowe doesn't stand out like he used to, so that's a problem too.
Yeah, so little in that horrible exhibition we saw between these Flyers and the Sharks the other night. That was the funny moment in that, Russ, was definitely when they called timeout, and I passed you. I'm like, thank God, and thank God they called timeout.
Thanks for slowing it down even more, right?
It was awesome. We were just cracking up. You said, yeah, somebody had to slow it down. The fans were getting into it. They were actually applauding. I guess call timeout if the fans start one chant.
Right.
100% for the Sharks, no questions asked. That's a given. Okay. They're in the playoffs. They're winning the division. I did talk to some of the players, and the amazing thing is how much faith that they actually have in Martin Jones for being there such a short period of time. They will all tell you that he's the best goalie they've ever had, and they'll tell you that they'll tell you that off the record, but they'll say he's the best we've ever had here. He's better than all the others. Better, going back to Toskala and
Well, Toskala is not a real high bar.
Toskala, Nabokov,
the problem. So
Alex Stalock, Niemi.
Nabokov was their best probably, and there's been a lot of anyway.
I'd be upset if I were Mikko Kiprusoff, but go ahead.
Vancouver.
60%. I'm a little scared of them with the age of their players declining as the season goes along. Plus, they have UFAs like Hamhuis, who they might, if they're in a borderline playoff situation, decide to trade. So, 60%.
I go 65. I like what I see out of Ryan Miller. I think whatever decline you see in the older, you'll see a boost of the younger.
I've watched them a lot over the last 5 games, and this is unfair because they're in the last 10 games. They've been absolutely horrible. They're like, what are they? They're 2-6-2 in their last 10. So I'm going 33% here. I don't think they're a playoff team. I think they got off to a good start, but I think they're falling out. And I think that I do think Miller's done a great job, but I think there's so much more they need than Miller, and all that. So Nashville.
85%. I'm convinced that David Poile at the deadline will go out and get himself a big piece up front. He may have to trade Kevin Fiala to do it, but I don't know if they would be that adverse to doing that. A Staal, as we said, a Ladd, something like that. But with the defense that they have in Rene, the time is now for the Predators. They have a chance to make, with Chicago down and LA down, they have a chance to win it all if they add a really big piece.
Yeah.
I'll go 80% because they trade all their good prospects unless they're defensemen. They pushed them all to the circle for Forsberg. They'd probably do it again, but that's what's wrong with David Poile, to be honest.
Yeah, interesting. 85%. I think that they're in it, but because I really think they can get more out of.
They're not going to do. Here's the thing: they have to finally wake up one year and say, with this group, the way it is right now, we cannot win the cup. We're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
We're going to get to a certain, but there are games where they just can't score. Can't score.
Oh, I know. It's they're built. They aren't that. It's funny. Someone brought this up to me, and it really, really is from. You remember when the Washington Capitals when Poile was there, and they had all those 20 goal scorers on defense.
Yeah.
The Capitals.
It's the same thing. I mean, that's what they're getting all their push and scoring from their defense again.
He built the same exact team. in that.
And we'll save this for another webcast, but I think the time for the Nashville Predators to consider trading Shea Weber is now. Right now.
We'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's possible. I mean, I'm more open to it than I've been before, but I don't think it's happening. We'll see.
Well, since you're assistant GM and all, we understand.
Yeah, me. I don't have any say, obviously, Carter. All right, so Winnipeg Jets.
You skipped Chicago.
I skipped Chicago. Yeah, Chicago. Sorry.
Oh, that's a mental thing. You did that on purpose.
I will go 80%. First of all, I think all 5 teams. I think the 2 wild cards are coming out of the Central, and I think Stan Bowman will do another deal before the deadline to improve their chances. He'll probably get somebody like Toronto to take Brian Bickle's $4 million off of their cap. For a prospect or a draft pick, and they'll go out and make a deal. So I think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I go 85% because they'll get the best pickup at the deadline, Duncan Keith.
Yeah, they're 95%. They're making the playoffs. There's no. It's good. They're getting in there, but hopefully they're not in there by Thanksgiving, so I can be right about something. Winnipeg Jets.
25%. The division is tough. Losing Pavlik might be a good thing in terms of Hellebuyck steps up and plays well, but I think they're going to lose one or both of Ladd and Bufflin, and when they do, I think they'll tail off.
48.
Yeah, I'm going to say 38, 30, 30, 35. Let's go with 35. A little bit less than 38. Arizona.
20%, but I think that they'll stick in a lot longer than a lot of people thought. Domi is a really good rookie. They're a deeper team. They added a bunch of players, and they're all playing well. The goaltending is not great, but I think they'll stick in a little longer than anybody expected them to.
17%.
17. I'll go about 25% there, too. I kind of think you're right, Mike, on the sticking around part. Anaheim.
50%. I mean, that early start hurt them, but I think they're like I said, they're only 4 points behind Vancouver. Frederik Andersen's out with an injury right now, so they've called up Gibson, and Khudobin is probably going to be their starter. I don't know how serious the injury is, but I think Anaheim has got the horses. I think they're going to make the playoffs, but right now I'll say 50-50.
Yeah. 65%. I think Anaheim's going to make it, no questions asked. It's amazing that they're only 4 points out of a playoff spot with how badly they played. All they need to do is play slightly better to make the playoffs. I mean, they aren't. They're lucky that division is what it is, and that the top 3 teams get in, because they might, if that wasn't the case, they might not. It might be the situation where there's actually 6 teams, instead of the 6 teams from the Central or whatever there could be. That could finish ahead of Anaheim in the standings, but they're going to make it. Colorado.
0.
Wow, tough one, Colorado. I mean, they have played.
Not a lot there, Ak. And
I mean, for Varlamov's back, they'll win some more games, but they're not making it.
They are scoring goals, though. I mean, there's one thing you'll say about them is that that you're right. If Varlamov comes back and plays well,
no, he did come back and play well. He already got a win.
Yeah, so he continues that going. I mean, McKinnon is on fire. He's having a real big bounce back season.
And it appears all the Duchesne rumors were just to get him going.
I don't know, but for now we'll say that's true. I think we could see that rekindled very much. We may have been seeing some what I call preliminary feelers out there for the trade deadline.
Yeah.
With Duchesne, but yeah, I don't think he's getting traded right now. But I never thought he was getting traded right now. But I think that feels like one of the earlier ones. But yeah, I'm going to give them. I mean, I'm going to give them at 35. I'm not going to say they're going to make the playoffs, but I think they're going to hang around 2 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Calgary.
I'll give them a 30% chance. I still think that that team is good. I still think that their defense is one of the best in the league. And I like their forwards. The question is goaltending, whether they get enough out of Ramo, Hiller, Ordio, or whoever they bring in. I mean, if the goaltending doesn't improve, then it's 0. But I think it'll improve a little bit to give them a chance to make the playoffs. It'll be 3rd place in the division, not a wild card, though.
I mean, they have played better in their last 10 for sure. But I mean, their minus 25 goal differential is staggering. I mean, and that's they're not just getting bad goaltending. They're not scoring either. I mean, they've only scored 50 goals, which puts them, I think, among the, if not the least amount of goals, maybe the least. That is the least, I think, in the NHL, maybe beyond Buffalo and Anaheim, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking really, Buffalo, Carolina, Philadelphia. I mean, there's a couple teams, but still, 50 goals and 75 goals allowed. I mean, that's like 75 goals allowed is staggering above everybody by let's see, where's Philly at? 71. Columbus is at 71. Yeah, so.
I mean, honestly, in terms of, we know that, I think Calgary is a much better team than the way they've played. Hiller is a UFA at the end of the year. Ramo is a UFA at the end of the year. Their main prospect in their organization, Gillies, is injured. They had to go out and trade for Kevin Poulin to have somebody play in the AHL. I think if there is a goaltender or two out there on the market now, between now and, say, New Year's, that Brad Treliving goes out and makes a deal. If the Leafs are shopping James Reimer, if Varlamov is on the market, I wouldn't be surprised if Calgary went out and tried to make a deal for one of those goalies.
Yeah, okay. And finally, we'll get back to Russ when he comes back online. But Edmonton, we finished with Edmonton. For Calgary, I didn't give mine for Calgary, I guess. I'm like 21%. I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs. I think this is a team that just doesn't have. There's something very wrong, and I don't think they can fix it in time. I mean, I think this is a team with a bright future. Don't get me wrong. I'm just like I did with Florida. It's the same kind of thing, like I said before. These are teams that I would trade, a lot of rosters for their roster because they have such a great future coming. But I just think that right now they're not in there. Edmonton, of course, is the final one.
I say zero. From every indication, McDavid, they're not even going to think about bringing McDavid back until after the All-Star break, which is probably, you're talking late January or the first week of February. And if that's the case, I mean, he was the only reason that team was competitive. When he left, their goaltending just, I think, has let them down. But also, I think there is no support there from their defense. They're still getting good scoring out of Draisaitl and Hall, but I think they're just not good enough to really get back in this race and contend for a playoff spot. Russ, what are your percentages on Calgary and Edmonton?
Calgary 15, Edmonton 0. If you can, give me rapid fire because then I gotta go.
No, that's it. That's it.
What's everyone? All I'm going to do left. Sorry we did so long. I'm going to run the NHL Draft Lottery Simulator.
Yes.
For Edmonton, I've got Edmonton at 45%. By the way, I think I'm very happy. I think they're going to actually get back in this thing. So run the Draft Lottery Simulator today. First three winners are. Here we go. So you can leave it here clear as day. Philadelphia, Buffalo wins it. Boston. So Austin Matthews, Colorado, and Philadelphia, top three picks in the draft.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. Russ won't be back tomorrow, but we'll see you, Russ, after the holidays. We're not going to go on Friday. And so have a great Thanksgiving with your family. And Dan will be here tomorrow. We'll pick his brain about what the heck's wrong with the Islanders. And all other things involving the Islanders. And, of course, the former Hartford Whaler, Carolina Hurricanes. And things like that. Thanks, Mike, so much. Thanks to everybody for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow. Again, I really appreciate it. I'm going to be continuing my NH UFA to be / most tradable players this week. So keep checking back. I might do a couple a day here because I'm going to pick it up a little bit. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.